Welcome to GFT, Galactic Figure Talk, a podcast about Star Wars and Star Wars action figure collecting.
Awesome, yeah!
The reason they're 3.75 inches tall is because the first mock-up figures that I made were Fisher-Price Adventure People.
I will freeze your body in carbonite forever, Han Solo! Not so fast!
We finally launched 6-inch when I felt the time was right. We needed a new spark.
We started selling all of the action figures through the fan club, and our most successful was the Cantina Band. That was enormously one of the best-selling items we've ever sold through the fan club.
Whoa! Darth Vader!
I used my nephew as a hand model on the Wampa box. He's the one with the little hand that's in there.
It's Kenner's new Star Wars action figures. Now, welcome your host, Chris B.
Welcome to another episode of GFT, Galactic Figure Talk. My name is Chris B. I'm your host, and on this episode, I want to talk about collecting Star Wars action figures. So let's do it. Alright, so there hasn't really been a whole lot of news coming out of Hasbro ever since San Diego Comic-Con. It's been a little quiet, which was kind of expected because they did show a lot of figures. They pipeline revealed a lot of figures as well. And they, of course, also announced Hasbro Pulse Con coming up, which is going to happen in roughly about 2 weeks. That's going to be on a Friday, September 13th, 2024. Starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Feels like it's a little scaled down from previous years. Remember when PulseCon started? I mean, they made this like this elaborate 3-day event, and then it went to 2 days, then it went to 1 day, and now it seems like it's probably around half a day. I think that's what it kind of sounds like. And yeah, so that's where we're going to get a lot of Star Wars action figure announcements out of that event. It's going to be hosted by Jordan Hembrow, who also hosted the San Diego Comic-Con behind the scenes events, I think, or the stuff that they filmed on the show floor at least. So I think they were pretty happy with him, and he loved it. And seems like Jordan Hembrow is going to be back hosting that. Now, they've already announced an exclusive Star Wars action figure for the show with the Black Series battle droid and the Stab vehicle. That's going to be a Hasbro Pulse Con exclusive. So we don't know exactly what time this is going to go on sale, but I would imagine it's either that particular Friday or maybe 1 day later on Saturday. I'll post the info on galacticfigures.com once it's available. Now, they did say that the brands which they're going to cover during Hasbro Pulse Con are going to include Transformers, G.I. Joe, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Marvel, and, of course, Star Wars. And, yeah, I think that leading up to the event, we're probably going to see a leak or two, especially if the items previewed are going to go on pre-order. You know that, online retailers are going to get the information a little earlier to prepare their websites with product pages. And once that information is typically sent out, we start seeing the leaks, unfortunately. So I would expect to see some news this coming week and, of course, the week leading up to Hasbro Pulse Con. So we kind of are in that dry spot right now, but that's going to change fairly quickly. So I've been traveling around Washington State quite a bit lately, mainly because of my son's soccer games. He plays in a select team, so he has to travel quite a bit on the weekends. And I made it up to the Canadian border, or actually a town in Washington State called Linden. It's literally just a few blocks from the Canadian border, but on my way I was able to hit a whole bunch of Walmarts and a whole bunch of other stores as well. And I've noticed that there isn't really a whole lot going on besides the Black Series Acolyte wave. That seems to be making the rounds more now. Plus the Vintage Collection wave that we've been seeing for a few weeks now at retail with Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper, Luke X-Wing, Leia, and R2-D2. A lot of the heavy hitters in that wave, really. I've also seen those hitting store shelves in bigger numbers, specifically at Walmart stores. Now, the weird thing is I actually came across a whole bunch of those cases, but they were all destroyed. Like, literally, like there was a ton of damage to those cards. And that just didn't happen at one location. That was at multiple Walmart locations where they put out those cases. And the figures, I mean, the cards were just, I mean, completely gone. I mean, heavily bent. It looked literally as if they had dumped a whole bunch of stuff on those boxes and then put the figures on the shelf. So, but I guess if you're a loose collector, that is, you know, definitely an option for you to go out and check out Walmart and see if they have any of those vintage collection figures. And then Epic Heroes series is kind of interesting in that it's around. It doesn't seem to be selling well at all at my local Walmart stores, but it seems to have sold fairly well at Target. So my local Target stores, they put out that Darth Vader Stormtrooper 2-pack. This morning when I was there was only one left. So that moved off the shelves fairly well. All the single-carded figures at my local Target store were also all gone. The only ones which they had left were the deluxe ones with Sabine and Paz Vizsla. But then when we talk about Walmart, we had the deluxe figure show up with the, I think it's called a build-up pack for $20. And then also a 2-pack which includes Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. So those Epic Heroes series figures are also out there. Now, I do archive those figures on galacticfigures.com, so if you want to check those out, you can. I mean, the one thing I really appreciate about the Epic Heroes series is the price point. You know, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, single-carded figures are now $8, I think, $7.99. I mean, what a difference it makes when you go to the register to pay for your figures, right? I mean, if you're lucky and you find a new wave of TVC figures at your Walmart store or your Target store, what have you, and you go up to the register with the whole wave, you're looking at like $100 for like 4 or 5 figures, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's where the Epic Heroes series really shines, and that's in the price points that they can have with these figures. And I'm pretty sure that there's an audience out there. Although, like I mentioned earlier, my Walmart stores are swimming in those. But again, at my local Target here in Linwood, Washington, they sold really, really well. So that's what I've been seeing at retail here locally in Washington State. Black Series Acolyte figures, which have just shown up here. The TVC wave with Vader, Stormtrooper, and all those figures. And then some of the Epic Heroes series figures with the Bo-Katan and the Moff Gideon 2-pack and the Darth Maul. And that's really it for store reports. Now, this past week, a lot of us have received the Vintage Collection Jabba the Hutt action playset from HasbroPulse.com. And that was reason enough to do a deep dive on GalacticFigures.com. I called it the Jabba the Hutt Takeover, where I published an article about Jabba the Hutt 3 3/4-inch action figures and the world building around it for an entire week every single day. Seems like you guys really enjoyed that, and I want to say thank you to everybody who stopped by the website to read those articles and to check out those comparison pictures between the different head sculpts and the different releases and the different thrones that are out there now. And I had a lot of fun putting this together, but it was also a ton of work, especially pulling out all the Clone Wars figures and populating the throne room that way with all these animated figures. That was a blast, but it took a lot of time to actually pull those out. But it also was a good reminder just how incredibly good the Clone Wars 3 3/4-inch action figure line really was. I mean, they put a lot of work into this line, and there were just so many different background characters and bounty hunters that made it into that line that makes it such an attractive line to collect, I think. Especially if you're a fan of the Clone Wars and you like 3 3/4-inch figures. I mean, there's no way around the Clone Wars animated line that came out between 2008 and 2013, I think, was when we saw the last figure. And yeah, I had a great time because, I mean, that Jabba the Hutt that they did, you know, a lot of people, when they see this picture, they're like, oh my god, this looks like Slimer from Ghostbusters. Yeah, but I mean, that looks really funky, right? So if you don't know what the Clone Wars figures looked like back then, I can see why you would have that reaction. But yeah, I had a great time. I also put the Kenner figures into that entire throne set. Something I've wanted to do for like a year. And I realized that the original Kenner throne that Jabba came with does not fit into that throne set. It's too large, so you have to take the throne that comes with it. And Jabba fits on it. It's maybe a little tight, but he does fit on it comfortably. It doesn't look off or anything. But I think because the throne looks rather modern and is really nicely sculpted, the entire set feels or gets more of a too much of a modern feel almost for the set. Otherwise, it would have worked really well with all those Kenner figures from the 70s and 80s. But I mean, it still works, you know. I mean, I guess it depends on how picky you are and how accurately you want it to look to the 70s and 80s. But I had a great time, again, pulling out all those figures from back in the days and populating the throne. And then, of course, I put a lot of the modern figures in there and took some pictures. And yeah, so if you want to check all these articles out, they're up on galacticfigures.com. I called it Jabba the Hutt Takeover. There's also a deep dive about the Tatooine skiff. There's also a deep dive about every 88 figure released, or every Salacious Crumb figure released, every Jabba the Hutt figure released. There's a deep dive on Jabba the Hutt goons that you can use for your Jabba the Hutt display, specifically for the vintage collection. There was a deep dive about the Jabba the Hutt action set that came out in 2019 that came with an exclusive Hun Carbonite and, for the time at least, exclusive Reese figure. And of course, you know, Jabba the Hutt Takeover wouldn't be complete without his vehicle, the Katana, the sail barge. So if you need an accessory guide for that, or just want to check out some fan displays, that's all up on galacticfigures.com, and that was part of the Jabba the Hutt Takeover. So that was basically my week last week. So I didn't really add any figures to the website. I was just taking pictures of Jabba the Hutt figures for like a whole week and cropped them and cut them out and had a good time with it. So anyways, got sidetracked there a little, but I wanted to talk about pre-orders with you guys for the remainder of 2024. And there really is a lot of stuff coming. And most of the pre-orders start shipping within the next few weeks. The Vintage Collection X-Wing Pilot 4-pack is now shipping from Hasbro Pulse. I think I have my set ordered through Amazon. There hasn't really been any movement yet coming from Amazon. I think it is scheduled for sometime in October. That's really when it's going to hit us really hard with a lot of the stuff shipping. It's in October. The main shipping dates, based on the Amazon shipping dates that they have listed right now, is November and December. And that's going to be so busy that if you pre-ordered some of those figures, you'll probably see figures come in to your home at least a couple of times per week, because there really is so much stuff out there that you can pre-order. And I want to run down some of the items here on my list. So for the retro collection, you're looking at 6 figures from the Acolyte. That's definitely going to be out this year still. You're looking at about 30 figures for the Black Series line. Now that includes some of the 3-packs on Amazon. There's the GameStop Phantom Menace 3-pack, for example. But in total, you're looking at about 30 figures, which are still supposed to come out this year for Black Series alone. Now for the Vintage Collection, I counted roughly 23 figures for TVC with some of the packed-in figures. And that does not include the figures which are included with the Ghost vehicle, right? And we are expecting the Ghost to still ship this year, hopefully in November or December, hopefully before the holidays. We're also expecting the E-Wing to show up before the year is over. And the Armorer's Forge and Moff Gideon's Light Cruiser playsets, they're currently slotted for December. So those are still supposed to be out this year as well. So yeah, again, there is a lot of stuff coming our way for the remainder of this year. And keep in mind, That does not include any of the Skeleton Crew figures, which they might have on tap, right? I mean, the Vintage Collection is kind of behind when it comes to new media entertainment. We're still waiting for Acolyte figures. But when it comes to Black Series, they've been pretty good getting the product out at about the time when new media entertainment comes out. So remember, Skeleton Crew was kind of expected last year already for the Christmas season, and it was delayed and everything. So I would imagine that they already have a whole bunch of figures ready to go for us. And then the question is, are they still going to ship this year, or is this going to be something that's going to roll over into 2025? So it's going to be interesting to see, but I'm pretty sure we get clarification out of Hasbro Pulse Con in 2 weeks. It's a little tricky currently because what should you pre-order and what shouldn't you pre-order, right? Is stuff going to sell out? Is it going to come back in stock? I think from experience, the way it's been going is that there's typically always something that comes back in stock because there's always cancellations. Some credit cards are declined. People change their minds and cancel last minute. That kinds of stuff. So, if you didn't pre-order something and you're waiting for it to come back in stock, keep an eye out on those websites, like Entertainment Earth or Hasbro Pulse and what have you. To see if those figures come back in stock at around the time they start shipping to other people. But I do get the question quite a bit where people ask me, hey, Chris, what should I pre-order? And I'm like, you should pre-order the stuff that you're really passionate about, the stuff that you really want for your collection. And I think that's what I would go pre-order with, because even if you have to wait a year before they mail it out, which is still the case, by the way. Some of the delivery times are still like a year out. I would pre-order that stuff because nowadays it's fairly easy to cancel. Hasbro Pulse just has a button that says cancel my order and you're done. There's not a whole lot of stuff you have to do besides pressing a few links, really. And so, yeah, that's what I would recommend, is that pre-order the stuff that you're really, really passionate about and that you really want to have for your collection. All right, so I think that's where I'm going to wrap up this episode of GFT. I think on the next episode, I'm going to be speculating what Hasbro might show us or might not show us during Hasbro Pulse Con 2024. So stay tuned for another episode of GFT in the near future for more Star Wars action figure talk. So thank you guys for listening. Please hit the subscribe button to not miss a show. And if you have a second, please hit the 5-star to review the show in your app. It does help the show to be bumped up in the ratings, and it keeps me motivated to keep putting out those podcast episodes for you guys. So thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.
It's a wrap for this episode, but the next one is just around the corner, so make sure to subscribe. Meanwhile, have fun browsing over 4,000 Star Wars figures on GalacticFigures.com, the Star Wars action figure database. The website helps you look up and identify Star Wars figures. Leave your own figure reviews in the comments, or check out photo galleries, figure info, news, press releases, or event coverage from New York Toy Fair and Star Wars celebrations. Thanks for listening. Check the links in the description, and remember to subscribe.